You're dismissed. Come in. Well, welcome to task 3 of the Insurance Apprentice 2017. You're one short of yesterday. Trust that'll be fresh in your mind as you tackle today's task. I'm very fortunate to be joined by Thokozile Mahlangu from Sasria, and she'll be taking you through today's task, which is obviously sponsored by Sasria. Over to you.
Good morning. Today's task is about assisting Sasria to develop an app, and the purpose of that app is to predict strikes and riots that are coming up the next 12 months or even longer. What I would really like to see from the presentations is innovation from you guys. I want to see the impact, business impact of the app and the benefits of it to the customer and to Sasria.
One of the things we like to do on The Apprentice is really to get a message across. And one of the messages we want to get across is that accountability is a good thing to have in any business, not just in insurance. That really means when something goes wrong, somebody's got to put their hand up, somebody's got to take responsibility for things. It's good governance. So today we're in an unusual position because we're one short, which means you've got uneven groups. It could be argued that the group with less people is at a disadvantage, perhaps. So to try and level things out, we're going to do things a little differently. Keith, yesterday, you put yourself forward as the CEO. Today, you're in luck. You are the CEO. You're the CEO of the group of 3. And as with any good CEO, you have the good fortune of choosing your team. There is a downside though. If you fail as a team, you will definitely be going home today. Who would you like in your team?
Matoro, Kurt, Lisa.
That's too many.
Matoro and Lisa.
Okay. So that's team 1. The rest of you obviously in team 2. I'd like you to go away. Once again, come up with names for your teams. You've got 4 hours to complete the task, and I'll see you back here for the presentations. You're dismissed.
Thank you very much. It seems like I've been pointed out. Quite an exciting challenge, actually. Definitely up for the challenge, and I'm glad with the team that I've selected. Definitely the best of the lot. I just love the dynamics that we've got. Lisa's very creative with her thinking and out-of-the-box strategies. Mataro comes with a different angle, also creative in terms of what he brings to the party. Brings a nice balance. He's quite level-headed. I think I am balanced. I'm well-rounded. Motivated, ambitious. I definitely bring a different dynamic to each team that I'm with. I tend to be a natural leader. Without really trying very hard, people seem to gravitate towards me in terms of that particular role in many situations in life, and that seems to be happening here as well. I think we're working well together.
I've not worked with Keith before, so I don't know what to read. But when I look at it, given the pressure that he's in now, I do get the sense that he's trying to overdo it, and purely because of the pressure, which is understandable. But now and again, it does come across as trying too hard and too much. Strategically, I would still like our team to win, even though one could say if we lost, then it puts Keith in a position where he'd go. But I believe that it's never about the individual. The team is always important. There's no I'm going to sabotage Keith because it's still a team game.
You want to be part of the winning team. I'd like to win every day. It's not nice losing. I didn't want to lose yesterday. I'd prefer it if we hadn't lost. I'm aiming to win, and I'll put everything into winning. And if that ends up me keeping Keith and beating him, I'll beat him out in the final. He's a strong player, but I'll beat him.
Lisa would have loved to take more of a leadership role in this task, purely because of the fact that previously she's never been in the role that allows her to be in the forefront.
Mutoda is obviously one of the stronger players. He's definitely one I've got an eye on. And then Kurt, if he'd been able to be part of our team, I think it would have been a good addition to it. I'm happy with the 3 people that we are. I think we're a very strong set of people, and I think we're going to make quite a strong team.
I think if he loses, I say this with all due respect, it will be because he didn't put me in that team. You choose your team very carefully, and in competition you look to weaken your opposition. Leaving me in that team might be his biggest mistake.
So far, it just feels good to have made it to task 3. Yesterday was extremely intense and draining emotionally.
I think the team that I have today is the most balanced team to date, because I've got a situation whereby everyone has got passionate, everyone's got knowledge, everyone's got ideas. It's almost on a 50-50 equal footing whereby we're all coming together.
So the task that was given to the apprentices, it needs to be practical, something that can be translated into a real app, maybe in the future. And it needs to show clear benefits for Sasria as well as for the end customer, and there needs to be the business impact of this tool that they bring. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
I think the understanding across the team is very congruent. Everyone gets it. Everyone gets what we need to do in terms of what information is required and what the end product should be. So currently, Kurt and I are mainly on the research side. We are trying to provide the data to back up the actual product that we're going to sell in the front end. Cabello and Strelo have been relegated to look at the look and feel of the product, what the client is supposed to see and what information is supposed to come through. We decided to choose one person to coordinate the entire process, just to remind us where we need to come to, and just for the fun of it, we chose the rose Cabello among the thorns.
There are tangents that someone will go off on or will argue too long on a certain point, and that's when you just need the coordinator to just say, no guys, let's vote on this, moving on. Or someone to say, no guys, we've taken too long, given our time limit, we need to move on to the next task. Our team has chosen to tackle the task by looking at what can we do that will differentiate us from the next team, what will be our competitive edge. At the moment, what we've agreed our competitive edge will be is more research and just a more data set behind us, a strong data set behind us.
What I've seen is that Kurt is an opinionated person, and time and again, I think unconsciously, he sees himself dominating the talk and maybe shutting down other people to talk, and you having a brilliant idea, but then not being flexible to take other people's idea, to maybe even shape that idea or bring in a new angle to it. That has been the challenge that I have observed.
My aim, regardless of who I'm with, is to win, and to win purposefully. So it's that sort of determination, that sort of focus that I believe I can bring together with the technical skill I believe I possess, and playing to strength. I think that's important.
What I bring to this team is leadership and focus and strategy. So I do still find that Keith is unable to get structure and focus. I'm also in an interesting position because I was leading in the previous task and my team did not win. So that in itself says I'm still also under a lot of pressure. So it's even more important that I still contribute significantly.
The idea is basically mine. The app, how it's going to work, the functionality, that idea was mine. So it's kind of hard if we don't win it, then it'll be hard to see Keith go home on something that was actually my idea.
I feel very confident about the idea that we have for this task. I always believe in tasks that benefit as many stakeholders as possible. Sasria will be happy, insurers will be happy, end users, the client, non-insured. It covers the whole ecosystem.
I've got to keep myself safe by making sure that we win today, and as long as I'm happy with the direction we were heading, I think I'm covering that base.
I think we're going to do really well on it.
I think as a collective, because of the knowledge of their joint strength, they might have a slight advantage. But I think we're going to handle that. We're going to handle it amongst ourselves. We've got enough skill in the group, and we're working very, very hard. So I believe we'll get the win.
I've been in 2 winning groups, and today is the 3rd day, and our group is working well, and I'm likely to have my 3rd winning group team, and it's on track.
Welcome back. I'd like to thank Thokozile for her time here and, of course, for Sasria sponsoring this task. I wish you luck. Don't mess it up. Go ahead.
The solution that we have come up with is that we have conducted in-depth research and been able to come up with a mobile and web-based app, which will be freely accessible and free to download. This app will be accompanied by an SMS which will be sent to the broader society to enable Sasria to be able to meet that market which is not insured at the moment. The customer will be able to be better at risk management given the preemptive information that we'll be able to give them. Sasria will be able to be a risk manager and communicate better to their clients, and the benefit to the society as a whole, and especially government, is that it will help in risk mitigation.
So ultimately we will rely on 2 things. The main thing is creating an algorithm that will be able to rely on current information in terms of news feeds and social media information, historical information on strikes that have happened before, the impacts and the timelines between the announcement of the strike happening to the time the strike actually happens. The second part of it will rely on a specialist team that's able to then look at this information or the probabilities created by this algorithm and make a judgment on whether it should go out to clients or not.
Have you thought about the impact, perhaps, of warning people about an event that then doesn't take place? Because, I mean, you could land up, let's just say, in the city, shops close their doors for a few hours, nothing happens, so there's no cover, there's no claim against Sasria, and they can't claim for that loss anywhere else either, but they would have suffered some kind of business loss.
If you'll allow me the time, I think by the end of my discourse I will explain your question. So having established the quality of the predictive information coming through the app, because that's really what it's about. You don't want to send every single client every notification, fax and fear. It could be termed a host. So what's very important to understand that the information that goes out to the client, we're very certain that the probability of the event is high. The app is designed in terms of its interface to have a chance of occurrence. So low, medium, high, etc., etc. But we highlight to those clients, they need to understand it's information. It may happen. And there's no definitive outside of the...
So there's a disclaimer of some sort.
Absolutely right. It's built into the app, and even in the SMS, so we're then also going to partner with insurers. So make use of their black box systems, and this speaks to Sasria's goal of not wanting to hold on to information. We'll use their client database via SMS or email to send those informations after it's been qualified.
How are you going to verify that probability of that information?
The one part relies heavily on the algorithms and how well it's actually programmed to be able to assimilate information as it gathers it. So when it gathers it from the websites or the news feeds or the social media environment. The second part to that is to have people that understand that kind of information to be able to sort of study it.
This has got huge reputational
Absolutely.
damage. It could, if the information is incorrect.
And a lawsuit against Sasria for failing to notify people that there's a violent strike about to happen.
What would you do should it materialize that you send out incorrect information?
To minimize us getting to that stage where there are lawsuits, what we'll be doing is there's a team at Sasria that is working on the back end on the app. We'll receive the news feeds and the social media analysis. Then those people will be updating the information. So it's not like you send an information 6 months in advance, then you leave it there.
If I'm heading up a trade union and I learn that Sasria is warning people that my guys are violent and they're going to trash the place, it's gonna irritate me a little.
I must admit that we haven't extensively researched the risk mitigation techniques in terms of Sasria suffering as a result of them trying to do something good. And I think that is something we definitely need to
No good deed goes unpunished. You ever heard that?
Correct. And that is definitely something we'll need to look into.
If you've ever found yourself in the midst of a riot, I have when I was much younger, you actually don't know where to go. Roads are blocked, so this actually helped me out. So the app, we're using GPS technology, will be able to assist you to get out safely, be it by vehicle on foot, and that could possibly lead to Sasria saving people's lives, at least saving them from harm.
How is that going to work in terms of client privacy of information? I mean, with Poppy, you can only communicate on something that the client gave you information on. So how does that work with Poppy?
There are companies that are used not only in insurance, but in direct marketing that specialize in that. And you see even political parties use those companies. So you go to them, they do have the legal authority to operate and the obligation to comply with POPI and other legislation of relating to privacy. And those are the ones that are going to deal with the finer details of getting the information.
Thank you for your presentation.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, you're dismissed.
What I found lacking as well from them, they spoke a lot about the ideas, social media, get this info from there, but I couldn't find comfort in how are they going to verify the integrity of that information. It was quite hairy-fairy for me. They also didn't have a plan on how they're going to manage the reputational impact should incorrect information happen to be communicated.
They kept on changing between what the concept actually is.
I don't think they looked at the protection of the information. So I think reaching the broader public, it's a big dream. Where there was a little bit of tangibility for me is when they said they'll use the current policyholders, reaching the black, I think Strike had said they'll use the black box systems of the current insurers, engage with them. I think that could be doable. But again, with a little bit of resistance, of course, from insurers to give information freely like that without getting permission from the policyholder. I think they had great benefits for both the end customer and for Sasria.
I don't need to tell you how serious this is right now, do I? The floor's yours.
Part of our solution is not to only focus on Sasria clients, but to throw open the data by obtaining it from the general South African population, which will assist in obtaining real lifetime data and information. We will also be collaborating with media houses in terms of content on their websites, as well as existing app developers, more specifically Google Analytics, in order to promote the use of the app, as well as to make sense of the data once obtained, and in order to deliver the data to the app users and the society as a whole. We'll be doing this via an innovative data reward program, whereby we will entice the general public to provide us with real-time live information by partnering with the various cell phone providers to provide them with data as this information is supplied.
Basically, the great innovation of this app is that it will be provided to the South African market and ultimately transform every man on the street into your informers. Basically giving you real-time information about events that could possibly be occurring in geographic areas. At the same time, the app will also be used as a vehicle for notifications to be sent to the end user including existing Sasria clients, as well as the users.
Sorry, Lisa, can I interrupt you there? Just go back to your first statement. You'll use the app for people to send information? Just elaborate that.
So the plan is to advertise the app so that people download it.
And how are you going to verify that information to make sure that it's reliable and also it's not fraud-related so that they can get data?
So basically we'll be running algorithms in the back end to verify the information, and the algorithms will run off information that's gathered from various different sources.
I think we're going to have to skip to that.
How
do you verify?
So, and not to keep you in suspense, using our partnerships with data analytics such as Google and Google Analytics, the algorithm really looks at past trends and events. That is informed by economic events that have happened in the past, political events that have happened in the past. For example, if there's been a rate hike, a change in the Minister of Finance and all those things, previously you would see how that has led to social unrest because it then affects the social and economic well-being of the country. So once a person tips off, because we are constantly running this back to analytics, it's already trying to predict. So we will know that we are already expecting something as a result of the events and the current events that are happening.
I just have this picture in my mind of 50,000 people getting ready to go and strike or go on a riot and going, okay guys, let's get our data, let's hit the streets. Because, I mean, there doesn't seem to be a lot of control over that.
If one person just sends a notification, it won't do that, so you'll verify in the background. And then there will also be the algorithms running throughout Facebook, Twitter, what social sentiment is feeling. And a lot of those work on location services, and a lot of things actually are posted.
And the integrity of that information, I mean, what gets posted in social media is not always reliable.
Exactly. So we've identified as a risk to say fake news is a big problem. And what research does show is that any form of riot is not a spontaneous, sporadic event. There are social, economic things that lead up to that. And that is the power of the predictive analytic tool.
So we've got 2 notifications now. We're going to start taking this seriously. 3 independent IP addresses, similar location. So we can't have a guy who wants data in Durban saying there's civil unrest in Randburg when he's not really there. There's just going to be less reliability on that tip-off.
Doesn't the reward program, could it not pose a higher risk of people actually causing losses to get data?
Causing losses to get data? I don't think so, because I think if you word the wording correctly, and you make sure that when you're rolling out the app, that almost you advise them of the consequences of protests and that kind of thing, so that they're kind of aware of it and educate people. And then part of the terms and conditions of the app, so when a person signs onto the app, part of those terms and conditions when they sign and they tick agree is that Sasria will be allowed to advertise to them. So basically what that does is market penetration. So if you are targeting the lower LSM base, a lot of those people aren't insured. And those people don't know a lot about Sasria. They don't even know if they know what Sasria is. So when they say click yes, because now they want the data, they will then you'll be able to advertise to them and provide tips and advertise and get your name out there.
Thank you. You're dismissed.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about the costs. There's the fact that you've got to employ people. He mentioned that the development of the app is the main cost. I don't know if that is the case. I mean, to advertise an app requires constant marketing, billboards, television, newspapers, not to mention the fact that you are paying for this data that you're giving out every time somebody gives you a tip-off.
I think they spent a lot of time on the data reward, rewarding the reporters. I think they lost it there and focused on let's reward people to come forward with information. I think that went off for me.
So that's the execution gap.
Yeah. That for me didn't go well. And if you look at it practically, I mean, I've experienced it. If people are going to go on strike, they all just join in. So they'll all join in and just let's get the reward.
What's also important is the clarity of the concept. I think both of them kind of struggled in just making it tighter on how the business tool works, and they kept on changing from predictive to real time. So we need to also think about that. So on that basis, I mean, I would say the second group were much more clearer on what they want to do, but they were not clear on how they're going to execute it in a way that mitigates the risk.
It's crunch time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm impressed. The presentations were even better in this task than they were in the last one. Unfortunately, not everybody can be a winner. Somebody is going home today. So, over to you.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much. Just to echo Simon's view on the presentations, you've done very well. You all touched on various data sources. That aspect for me was intangible. The innovation was great on both teams. None of the teams highlighted how the protection of the client's information would be taken care of. There was also a talk of involving the broader society, the policyholders and the uninsured. But it wasn't tangible on how you're going to involve the uninsured. It was just left hanging for me.
Thanks, Thokozile.
My observations are throughout the presentations, both sides, your idea started to change or it became overcomplicated. So start thinking about how you're going to actually simplify your communication of that idea without contradicting each other and complicating it. In the presentation and in your teamwork, I see that you tend to interrupt each other a lot. There's a bit of waffling in how you answer questions as well.
Thanks, Vuyo. I'd just like to add to that, that the time is always an issue. And if you've got 15 minutes to do the presentation, maybe you should start thinking about coming up with 10 or 12 minutes of content and allowing the rest for the questions that are going to take up the time. As I said, it wasn't easy. So we got to a position where we looked at things like, how implementable is this solution? How much would it potentially cost? Because when you're pitching to a client, if you're a tech company, those are the questions they're going to be asking themselves. How much time do we need till we can get to market with this? Keith, you were the CEO following your statement yesterday. How did you find it being put into that position?
I think it's fair that you put me in that position in terms of my statements yesterday. One, I'm happy with the participants that are available to select, and more importantly, I'm happy with my selection for today's task.
You feel your team did the job?
I believe so.
After heavy consultation with the client, with the sponsor, Sasria today, and based on the implementability of this project, we deemed Strike First's proposal to be the one that we liked and the winners of today. Unfortunately, Uhuru, you're not the winners. Keith, you're dismissed.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, everyone. I'm obviously not feeling great right now. Fairly upsetting, not the result I wanted.
The rest of you, you've survived another day. Get some rest. We'll see you in task 4.
It's just unfortunate that we lost the task, and a promise was made and they've stuck to it, and that's fair. So I'm completely fine with that. And I had fun. That was the most important part of this whole competition. Learned a lot from it. I'll take a lot home with me. Came here to experience a new thing, take on the challenge, meet new people, and just enjoy the overall experience, which I definitely have done.